ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this very, very special edition of the Grid Talk podcast, where we are talking about the 100th anniversary of the Le Mans 24 Hours. I had to do the intro because the outtake compilation is ever growing on this channel. But I will pass it over to my co-host, the owner of the channel, Mr. Motorsport Magpie. Dave, how are we doing?
I'm not bad, Wajid, apart from thank you for that embarrassing intro. As you may have noticed, we have an extra box on the screen today. Obviously, Wajid joining us, but we are not the experts of Le Mans. So we have brought on Motorsport Commentator and self-confessed WEC, yeah, it is just WEC, nerd, Andrew Maffer. Andrew, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Evening, guys. Everyone watching the podcast. Great to have you on board here. Yeah, really looking forward to this. We're days away from the, as I say, centenary race. First running was back in 1923, of course. It's not the 100th running, as some people have said. That's a few years' time. We'll have another big party for that. But yeah, no, it's not just only a special year with, I say, the 100 years of Le Mans being celebrated, but it's a really, really bumper grid. We've got lots of manufacturers back. This has got all the hallmarks of potentially being a classic Le Mans race that we're going to be talking about in years to come.
So first of all, for those who don't know, Andrew, what is Le Mans? What is so special about this event?
What is Le Mans? What is so special about it? Well, in terms of its history, in European racing, it's one of the oldest races in the world. As I say, they've been doing this race for 100 years. A couple of breaks in the 30s and the 40s. But in my eyes, it is the ultimate challenge for manufacturers still in motor racing to go toe-to-toe with their own cars, their own technology, in a grueling contest of getting your car round to do as many laps as you can in the course of 24 hours. Still more than Formula One, I would say.
Yeah, it controversial on an F1 channel, but we'll go with it. To be fair, there's more manufacturers involved in the Le Mans than there is in Formula One, and we actually do let new teams in Le Mans. So, you know, there's things that are a lot different at Le Mans, and
Are you trying to say there's an FIA organized event where there's not massive amount of politics, backstabbing, and a ridiculous amount of rule changes and finances? Is that what you're trying to say?
It's a different kind of politics and rule changes, but I'm sure we'll get onto that.
Well, yeah, because we'll get onto things like the test day, where we can look at the times. We can say, oh, look, Ferrari are fastest. Yeah, but which teams are actually just sandbagging for the rest of this week, apart from even in qualifying, just so they don't actually get extra weight? And if you don't believe me, it happens. So to run through first, what sort of will be happening this week? Andrew, you're heading out to Le Mans.
Yep.
So what's sort of the order of the day? Because obviously we don't have qualifying the day before the race because it would be too much driving.
No, so the event has already begun as we're recording this. So there was test day on Sunday, which is kind of halfway between, say, a pre-season test, because obviously this is round 4 of this year's World Endurance Championship. These teams have already raced at Sebring, they've already raced at Portimao, and they've raced at Spa-Francorchamps as well. So it's not like a Barcelona pre-test in Formula One in February. It's very much a free practice in a way before we actually get into the race week itself. So we're going to talk about in a bit. That's happened. Wednesday we'll see race week proper itself start on circuit with free practice and the first round of qualifying on Wednesday. Pole position will actually be decided on Thursday in another set of qualifying sessions in what we call the Hyperpole session. I like Hyperpole. The thing to remember about pole position in a 24-hour race, it's not going to be the most important thing because it's a 24-hour race, but it is a good bit of fun to see who can do the fastest lap, single lap round Le Mans, probably of the whole weekend. You then actually do get a few more practice sessions after that, because one of the crucial things how drivers and teams need to prepare before the race is getting enough laps in to, in effect, qualify for the race by doing a minimum number of laps at night. So you'll see some of that on Thursday. Then, as you say, Friday tends to be a bit of a rest day for WEC and for the Le Mans 24 Hours teams themselves. There will be some other track action on circuit and some very special events going on specifically for this being the centenary year. That's one of the things I'm really looking forward to when we get down to France in a few days' time. And then Saturday, a great build-up, even from you get woken up by warm-up, probably. And then there's track action for a good few hours with some support races. And then all the preamble, the almost like Olympic-style opening ceremony that goes on for like 3 hours. Or it feels like 3 hours. And then the race begins, and it's twice around the clock to decide who's going to be champions of Le Mans for 2023.
You'd think they'd know the way around it without needing a warm-up, wouldn't you, by the time they get that far?
And things can happen in the warm-up. It's actually quite a treacherous time on the Saturday morning. There's been many a time when drivers have had incidents in the warm-up and not made the green, the Grand Depart, the drop of the tricolour at the start of the race. Remember Jan Magnussen in the Corvette, a Corvette that was well positioned to win in GT a few years ago, had that befall it. So yeah, it's a tricky thing to negotiate that early morning warm up, shall we say?
Now we've already mentioned, Wajid, you're not sort of as well into Le Mans as Andrew.
Let's just there's no need to be polite. This is noob levels. This is
okay.
This is walking into a Call of Duty modern warfare sort of lobby. It's sort of like mid 2000s where you think you're gonna have a bit of fun, and you actually enter the most toxic environment the world's ever seen. This is the type of level I'm talking about. So, like, my question will be totally basic and things like that. But
yeah,
I guess the first thing I want to ask is, why have we gone? Why the title change from LMP1, LMP2 to now Hypercar and LMP2? Like what's the thinking behind that?
Yeah, it's a really good question. That, as I said, if you were following Le Mans 5-6 years ago, the last time we had quite a few manufacturers. You had Audi, Porsche, and Toyota, and Nissan bought a car that was called an LMP1, but let's not talk too much about that. That was kind of like the halcyon days of LMP1, when you had, in the grand scheme of things versus other top-line motorsports, quite an open rule book to tackle the challenge of a hybrid powertrain race car, sports car prototype to take on Le Mans. In short, like a lot of manufacturer-led formulas over the years, even to an extent Formula One in the mid-2000s when you had BMW, Toyota, etc., and then the financial crash of 2008, it pretty much gorged itself to death on money. You had Audi and Porsche each trying to outdo each other for a good few years, Toyota just trying to keep themselves in there, and they're running a very good effort on a much smaller budget than the two German marques. And as I say, Nissan came in, had a complete failure of a project and withdrew after, well, not even 1 year. And it eventually got to the point that Dieselgate came along as well in the automotive world. That took Audi out of the game because they took such a hit PR-wise with their diesel technology. They had to go completely away and reinvent themselves in the manufacturer. And they're still very much doing that at the moment. Porsche, they had a bit of success, but then the boardroom decided this is too much money for us to just be beating Toyota, so they pulled out. So you ended up with an LMP1 class with just Toyota and a couple of other teams, Glickenhaus coming in as an example, the Bicolors running as well, Alpine running basically a glorified LMP2 for a few years as well. This was at the point at which the ACO decided we can't keep going with LMP1. It's simply too expensive for a manufacturer to come in and compete against Toyota. We need to do something different. We need to do something a little bit simpler that allows manufacturers that have previously not really considered Le Mans, or not considered Le Mans in, say, the last 20 to 30 years, to come to the table. Now, that's where they came up with this Hypercar concept, which has attracted some manufacturers. So you've got Toyota have stuck with it for the last few years, and to be fair, they have been very, very good servants to the Le Mans 24 Hours and the World Endurance Championship over those past few years. Some would say that it was a bit boring and that they didn't have anyone to beat. Well, you still had two Toyotas very much vying for that champion role, and some good racing between those two. But they were joined by Peugeot last year, who are running quite an interesting concept of a car. This year they've been joined by Ferrari as well. So it's the first time that we've had a works Ferrari team competing for the overall win of Le Mans in many, many decades. And they have been quick. They have been pretty quick so far, especially over one lap pace. But the real key, and I think this is a great move by the ACO, because as you say, there is politics in motorsport and you often get quite a bit of tribalism. It was the point at which the ACO reached over the Atlantic to discuss with IMSA, who are very much their opposite numbers in North America, how do we have a bit of synergy between the races that we have here in Europe and also in Asia when WEC goes to Bahrain and China and Japan? How do we get a bit of a bridge with some of the big races in North America? The Daytona 24 Hours as an example, the Sebring 12 Hours, which used to kind of run within WEC but then drifted away. How do we get the manufacturers that are over in North America, the likes of Cadillac being a big example this year, to be able to come over to race at Le Mans? They've got their own kind of top class, which is a very confusing name. If you're in WEC, it's called LMDH, which stands for Le Mans Daytona Hybrid, but for some reason the H is a little h. I still can't get my head around it after a few years. In the States, they're called the GTPs. Now, there's subtly different things in terms of how the setup's done and the BOP, which we probably won't get on into this one because it's not really that important for casuals coming into Le Mans. But essentially, they are the same car, and a lot of them are based on an LMP2 chassis that the manufacturers then bolt their bits on, their styling onto, and their own powertrain. And it's been a very, very popular concept in North America. It's actually their second generation of doing this kind of take an LMP2 chassis and then let the powertrain and the bits the manufacturers actually care about go on top of it. And it's attracted Cadillac back in. Porsche have come back in quite unexpectedly. Say, if you told me 4 or 5 years ago when Porsche were on their way out that they would be back in top line Le Mans racing by 2023, I would have said that's very ambitious indeed. But the really clever bit is where they've started to do a balance of performance between the hypercars, which are very much ground up. They are completely bespoke. They're not based on an LMP2 chassis at all. And then the LMDHs running in the same class of hypercar, but with that ability to be able to run their programs a little bit cheaper. Now, it's the key thing is that it's different to other balance of performance things that we get in GT racing, where essentially in GT racing, BOP is about all of these cars being able to run at the same target lap time. That's not the case for hypercar. It's about being able to have a car that can run in the same performance window, but if a team does a better job and gets a car running quicker within that performance window, then they're going to win the race. So it's actually one of the reasons I quite like this new hypercar class. It's kept the costs down for now. We'll see where we are in 4 or 5 years' time. But it's not completely stripped away the reward of the Le Mans 24 Hours being won by the team that does the best job.
You did ask, Wajid.
I mean,
No,
costs
no,
down,
it's
manufacturers back in, realistic chance of winning the Le Mans 24 Hours without having to spend oodles and oodles of euros and dollars to do
No,
so.
it's good at the end of the. It's a good to understand sort of the complexities for someone who doesn't watch many endurance cars racing and
I mean, I watch
learning about the different types of learning about a different type of politics rather than.
I mean, I watch it loads, and I still don't fully understand the American European sort of split, especially when they're forming rules. I mean, we can add into that we have 3 cars in the hypercar class that are not hybrids.
Yes.
So how do they come into sort of an equality of performance?
Well, they very much So this is where it's a bit different to how GTE and GT3 BOP has been done over the last, what should we say, 10 years or so. Or whether it's in North America or Europe, all of the cars have to almost they go in for a homologation the same as your road car would, and it's analysed and looked at by an independent team, as I say, either run by the ACO/the FIA for Europe, effectively, or by IMSA in North America. So what they're looking at mainly are amount of powertrain power that can be produced by each individual car, and kind of getting that balance so that you can have, you know, a V8 engine go against a turbo V6 and some other quite wacky things that you've got in the hypercar class this year. And then they also look at aerodynamic load as well. So how much force are the cars developing in a wind tunnel? And again, they can measure that so they can kind of get all these different ways of tackling the same problem to perform within that performance window. And then, yes, they will tinker with things a little bit to make some cars, or, you know, pull some cars back a little bit if they're just too far out of the performance window, or pull them up a bit. And those are mainly this year, they've been looking at turbo pressure, and they've also been looking at weight a lot, which I'm sure we're going to get onto, because there has been a little bit of controversy with that in the recent weeks.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, the teams do play. They play games, don't they, to make sure that they can have some kind of advantage, and we'll definitely get into that when we get to GTEs, because we know they're the, shall we say, the con artists of the world. To be fair, which we'll get into. Sorry, go on.
Just to cover as well, I mean, it is a very secretive thing about how the BOP has done, but to semi-defend the ACO and the FIA in recent weeks, their process is still developing, and whilst it has been a little bit controversial that all cars except the Peugeot, the Glickenhaus, which is one of the non-hybrid cars, and the Van Wall by Collab, those haven't been touched. The others have. My theory behind this is, now that they've run a few races, they've got a better correlation now between their lab studies and on track, and that is actually why they have then changed some of the balance of performance parameters for the other cars, because they found that they actually were producing a bit more performance than they thought the lab tests were initially telling them that they were going to do. So they've just refined it a bit. It's a typical thing in engineering when you're doing something off track, a simulation. The simulation's no good if it doesn't actually show what the real world is like, and you've always got to refine those simulations to make them better and better as you go along.
Yes, you just heard it right. On the Grid Talk podcast, we praised the FIA.
The FIA.
Now, trust me,
I gave him a potential defence point. I could be completely wrong.
That has been very difficult to do with the Formula One podcast recently, and even this morning we were critical of them. But obviously, while we're on the hypercar class, we could probably start talking about that. Who are we? I mean, from what we know, Van Wall are probably not, are just there for competition miles.
Yeah.
For bands. They're just there to take part.
Yeah. They were even there for more banter a few weeks ago when they had Jacques Villeneuve in the team. He's now left without being told we're being told. You know, we've heard he's heard it through the press release. Andrew, could you fill us in a little bit more on why Jacques Villeneuve, a former world champion, is being dropped?
Considering I'm going to be in the pit lane, I don't want to get clobbered by one of their lawyers. But yeah, it's, if I'm being quite frank with the Van Wall by Collab effort, I am not surprised that this kind of story has come out ahead of race week. It's not that long ago that by Collab's efforts in LMP2 were having parts impounded in the pit lane on race week by the bailiffs because of unpaid bills and such like. They have a very different way of running a racing team. That's how I'll put it. I don't think Villeneuve's pace was absolutely on the point of Ghani and Tom Dillman, who also in the car, but I don't think he was that bad. And I think he's actually got, this is going to be another rare thing, probably on this podcast, I'm now going to defend Jacques Villeneuve. It's been lots of talk about him throwing the car off. Well, I don't think it was his fault at Portimao when the brake system failed on him. That would have spat the best of drivers off off the circuit and into the scenery. I feel really, really, well, what's the word? I feel disappointed for Jacques Villeneuve. You know, at the end of the day, he's a Formula One world champion. He was going to bring at least some attention to a team that doesn't have a lot of money, that doesn't have a lot of resources. I don't quite get fully why Bicoles and the Van Wall team have decided to drop Jacques Villeneuve in from a marketing and PR sense. You know, they no longer have a Formula One driver or a recognisable name in that car. And the way in which they've done it, basically sacking him over Twitter, you know, has brought a load of bad press onto the team that is surely going to distract from the effort. It's a car that's not reliable as well. I would be very surprised if you wake up on Sunday morning and that car is still running. It's sadly another catalogue of errors from the management of the Bicoles Van Wall effort. But full credit to the team running that car. I know that the engineers and the mechanics and the three drivers that they've got, who are all good drivers, will give it their all. But yeah, sadly, the politics off circuit have built a bit of a rod for their backs for race week.
Just to throw one in there with Jacques Villeneuve very quickly before Wajid jumps in. You know, he didn't get any pre-season testing really. He got about 10 laps in the car. He's just getting comfortable with it, and then you throw somebody in who he's probably been test driver, but he hasn't really driven the car.
Yeah, Tristan Vautier, as I say, that's actually the other person I feel sorry for, because, you know, he, at the end of the day, is a professional racing driver. He's been contracted to drive the car and drive it as quickly as he can. Tristan Vautier is a very, very good driver. In some people's eyes, he's going to be public enemy number one because he's taken Jacques Villeneuve's seat. That's not his fault, not his problem. He's just got to get his head down and drive the car quickly. But yeah, not a well-managed situation, if you ask me.
But I mean, in terms of him, he has been, like you say, he has been put in the position where if you're replacing a former Formula One world champion with the opinionated nature, shall we say, in the last couple of years, you best pull out the performance of your life, realistically, especially given all the hype we've had. It feels very much like an Oscar Piastri at McLaren, sort of, with all the PR and the hype. So he needs to hit that ground running straight away, really.
And the irony would be, and I know I'm on a bit of a Bicoles bash at the moment, that car was set on fire on lap 1 previously. So the high irony of the situation would be, and this is prediction number 1, that Tristan Vautier, having come in to replace Jacques Villeneuve, probably won't even turn a racing lap once we get to Saturday, because the car has been very, very unreliable so far this year.
So I want to ask sort of about Porsche and Ferrari specifically. I'm going to try and link it back to an F1 sort of thing. So obviously there's all the talks of Porsche potentially coming into F1, you know, with the sort of change in the hypercar, the fuels. We also know Formula One's trying to change all the rules for 2026. Do you think the likes of Ferrari and Porsche are trying to maybe use the technologies from here to maybe advance the 2020, maybe sort of throw that into their 2026 rule changes into Formula One with the fuel change, the chassis changes, and things like that?
It would not be the first time that manufacturers have tried to do just that, use Le Mans as a platform to actually show off their engineering strength. It's been one of my criticisms, and I love Formula One. I've watched Formula One since I was 5 years old when Damon Hill was winning in 1996. But my biggest criticism of Formula One is just how narrow the rule book is. That if you're a manufacturer and you've got an ethos that you want to apply into your road cars, this kind of format, as with LMP1 before, but as I say, that got a bit cost silly. This format doesn't force you down the route of a V6 turbo engine. It allows you to do different things that you can then flex your muscles as a manufacturer and then, potentially show back to Formula One. It's like, well, what are you guys going to do? Because we're able to do this very applicable form of technology over here at Le Mans. We'd like to do it at Le Mans. We'd like to do it in Formula One as well, but you need to open your rule book a little bit, Formula One and the FIA. So, yeah, I think there definitely could be a little bit of that. with the likes of Porsche, the likes of Ferrari. But I think also a big point with Porsche is to say, if I would have been very surprised 5 years ago to see them back on the grid for 2023. But they are the case in point. They are a manufacturer who pulled out of the old LMP1 because it simply got too expensive for them. The LMDH platform, starting over in America and now being ported across and formed into the Hypercar, all of the aero and the underneath and the chassis technology in the way, which, let's be honest, doesn't have that much carryover into road cars. They don't have to do that. They pick up one of the LMP2 chassis and they build on from there. So that could be a thing that they also kind of want to bring into the Formula One world. I think that was very much a big talking point when they were talking to Red Bull. Porsche are a car manufacturer, and they want to be interested in the powertrains more than, aerodynamics and flicky wings that are never going to see the light of day on the M1 or the M40 or wherever it is in the world.
Yeah, it's very true. So with the hypercar class, obviously, I think the favourites going into it have to be Toyota, maybe followed by Ferrari. Could we see the Americans with Glickenhaus and Cadillac getting in there, or are we looking at the rules not quite being there equal enough for the competition just yet?
I think for the Glickenhaus, and it's great to see two Glickenhauses running again this year, it's going to be very, very tough for them. I think they had their moment in the sun 12 months ago, getting on the podium, beating out the grandfathered Alpines. That was their aim. That's why they got their foot in the door of Hypercar before all the manufacturers came, because they can say that they finished overall on the podium at Le Mans. Nobody can ever take that away from them now. Realistically, though, they're going to need a lot of attrition from the manufacturer cars to repeat that feat here in 2023. Cadillac, they are my dark horses. The key thing for the Caddy is another LMDH car. It has had a test of a 24-hour race already. Yes, under slightly different rule sets and balance of potential performances over in IMSA, but that car has already done the Daytona 24 hours. It's already done the Sebring 12 hours, a race that a lot of people say is as tough as 24 hours round Le Mans. It's had a lot of race mileage on it, and the teams, the three cars that are coming over, one of them is a full-time WEC entry, the number 2 car with Earl Bamber, Alex Lynn and Richard Westbrook. They had a second car running at Spa, and even though it did have a very, very heavy incident at Eau Rouge at Spa, they had a lot of good learning from that. And I also think was quite clever with that second car effort at Spa is the Cadillac Works team invited the Action Express team across with them, who are running a third car, a customer car, to learn the car, learn how it races in Europe, learn how WEC run things, because there's subtle differences with how things are run in America. They are my dark horses. That car's had race mileage. It's a strong race car. If you start seeing trouble with the Toyotas, which isn't beyond doubt, we've been there before when Toyota have had firmer manufacturer opposition over the years at Le Mans. You never know. If one of those caddies is running strong at the end and within striking distance, if a Toyota has an issue, they are my dark horses for the race victory.
So you kind of alluded to it. I was going to pin you down. If you had to go with a favorite, are you going to go with the back to back winners?
You can't really realistically go anywhere but Toyota, and you've got to give them their due as well. They've done a lot of good development on that car. It's the same car, it's the same platform that they ran 12 months ago. Quite notably, when they turned up to Sebring at the start of the season for WEC, the way the car was getting around the bumps and the hard curbs at Sebring, it was night and day different to 12 months ago when they were having genuine problems for getting the car set up when the 2022 season started at Sebring. That's where I kind of see the rest of the competition, because they're in their first year. They are where Toyota were 12 months ago. That's kind of a natural thing in terms of the sequence of the programs. So Toyota are definitely, in terms of race pace and proven reliability from the season so far and last season, they are the favourites, but they're not infallible. We have seen the car break down. It had problems in one of the cases at Spa, and there's only 2 of them. I think that is Toyota's biggest weakness. This is still an effort that is, to an extent, budget restricted. It's not like the Audi programs of the mid-2000s and the early 2010s when they would come with 3, sometimes 4 cars to have a good number of chances to win, essentially. I remember being there in, which year was it now? Because there's been several of them where it's all gone wrong. 2017. You had 3 Toyotas, both in 1, 2, 3, running very well as the Porsches had started to fall out of the race. They lost all 3 cars in very different scenarios in the space of 1 hour. Weird things can happen at Le Mans, especially in the middle of the night. And it is my big fear with Toyota that they've only bought 2 cars. If they have a technical problem on one of them, which can happen, and they run into an LMP2 car or a GTE car in the middle of the night with the other, that's it. Their chances of winning Le Mans in the Centenary year are done.
So I'm gonna fully pin you down. Out of the two Toyotas, are you going with the 2021 winners of Mike Conway, Kobayashi, and Lopez, or are you going with last year's winners in Buemi, Hartley, and Hirakawa?
And remember, Buemi's going for his 5th.
My heart says the number 7. I would love to see Mike Conway win it again. I still have my reservations about Jose Maria Lopez. He has a fair few too many incidents for my liking and has been known to have that in the last couple of years. So my head is going to go with the number 8 and another win for Sebastian Buemi, Brendan Hartley, and Ryo Hirakawa.
And it was Hirakawa's first Le Mans last year, wasn't? Or second, or first time in the top run.
Very, very underrated driver. Obviously, a lot of people know Sebastian Buemi and Brendan Hartley from their Formula One days, but you are only as strong as your 3rd driver, and this has been something that's inflicted Toyota before. I remember a few years ago, Anthony Davidson arguably lost a chance of a race win because Nico Lapierre had problems, and in the end, Lapierre was sacked from the team, or let go, shall we say. But it doesn't matter how good a driver you've got in the other 2 seats. If your 3rd driver is inexperienced or makes mistakes, as I say, that is my concern with the number 7. Ryo Hirakawa has been doing a very, very solid job for that number 8 car this year, and that's a team that has very much come together. There's been changes in and out as the likes of Kobayashi have been moved around. And obviously Kaz Nakajima as well used to be part of that team. That's why for me they are, preferred as a favourite over the number 7, because I just think across those 3 drivers they're a bit more solid of getting that car through to the end of the race.
And I suppose with the 3rd car, you're sort of thinking the 2015 race where we had Porsche turn up with 3 cars, and we woke up overnight to find Nico Hulkenberg, Nick Tandy, and Earl Bamber in the lead, and none of them had really driven the car much.
No, that's the thing. It's always a good thing if you ask me to have that 3rd car there. It's been a number of times over the years where the 2 regular cars across the course of the whole season, whether it be under WEC or series before that, if they've had issues, that's where your 3rd car, as I say, that year with Hulkenberg, Tandy, and Bamber. They had nothing to lose, and they went for it, and they were rewarded with a race victory. So it can happen.
I love that one because I put a bet on them for that. I actually had a bet on them, and I woke up and went, "Ooh, hello."
That was all. That was a big part of that was Nick Tandy. I think obviously the headlines went to Hulkenberg for that one, but Nick Tandy's stint in the middle of the night. I remember watching that from trackside and being just like, "Wow, he is on one tonight," and it shouldn't be undervalued, the efforts that both Tandy and Bamber, the non-F1 drivers, had in that team.
So Wajid has had to run, so we're still here with Andrew, and we're going to move on to Ferrari next. First time in the top class here, and quickest in the. I know the test day doesn't have a lot to do with it, but quickest.
Yeah, and this is a fast race car. I think this is a car, the 499P, that has taken a few people by surprise. It was big news when Ferrari announced that they were coming back to Le Mans. It's a long, long time since a Works Ferrari team has competed in the top class. They've obviously had presence there in the GT classes and lots of success in GTE and other classes before that for many, many years. But this is the first time that we've seen a Ferrari top line car going for race victory in decades. As I say, it's a quick race car. I think this is a car, give it another 12 months, is going to be a prime candidate for winning the race. Now, I don't think that's going to be this year. I think they've got a couple of technical issues and gremlins that they just quite haven't eked out yet because of the amount of mileage that they've had on this car. What I think this car will do, though, is get pole position, which would be a fantastic story for Ferrari to get pole position on the Thursday night in Hyperpole. They did it at Sebring. I say very, very much surprised people at Sebring turning up and very much giving a bit of a biff to the nose of Toyota in their first appearance and taking pole position for the first round of the season in Florida.
Yeah.
So if the car can stay reliable, I would expect it to be ahead of the Cadillac. But that's the question. Is it going to be reliable? Is it going to stand up to the test of 24 hours around Circuit de la Sarthe? They've got good teams. I'd say, you look at their lineups. The number 50 with Anthony Fuoco, very underrated driver. One of those drivers who, with a bit more money and a bit more luck, I think would have made Formula One, but didn't. Miguel Molina, who's been in their GT program for many, many years, knows the AF Corse team and how they run things, knows the brand. He's a very solid driver. Nicholas Nielsen as well, another Dane. If you want a driver that's going to run well at Le Mans, you get a Danish driver. So they've done that in him. That's a strong lineup. And then you've got the 51 as well, which has maybe got a little bit more star power in it. You've got James Collado in there, Alessandro Pierguidi, both drivers who've been great servants to Ferrari in their GT programs there. But my personal favourite for the year, Italian Jesus himself, is the third driver in that car, Antonio Giovinazzi. And we know how quick he is from Formula One. You don't have that many seasons in Formula One without being, having a little bit of an ability to pedal a race car. Does he have the reliable experience of racing against maybe or sharing the track, shall we say, with some of the lesser GTE runners? That's often a problem we see with Formula One drivers fresh out of Formula One, that they don't quite have the racecraft and the race management of dealing with the slower traffic. But they're taking this one seriously, Ferrari. I do think this could be their best hope of some World Championship glory in some shape or form here in 2023.
Yeah, so the one thing I see with Ferrari lineup is there's not a lot of top class, so the quickest class in the field experience. James Collado's been there, done it. Fuoco, Molina, Pierguidi's been in GTs for years.
Yep.
But you haven't got sort of the, oh my God, we're not going to get passed by anybody. We've got to do all the passing. And that's completely different when you get into the night at Le Mans.
It is, but in some ways, I think you can look at it as a positive of, because they have drivers who know GT racing, they can almost have a bit of a one-up on other drivers who haven't had GT experience. They know what it's like to be overtaken. They know where the GTEs are fast. They know where they're weak. I think they'll be able to use that experience actually as a bit of a twist advantage once they're in the hypercar in the middle of the night. Yes, they haven't had the experience perhaps of being on the other foot, but they have had some runs obviously with that at the races that we've had so far this season. I could be completely wrong. They could get it wrong and then blame the GT driver. That's normally what prototype drivers do. But I would be more confident in them that they have had good experience of Le Mans as an event, as opposed to they've not had as much experience in the top class. They're all smart drivers. If the car can stay reliable, I think they could at least be on the podium.
And as we've gone through pretty much all the teams, we won't do this for every class, but in the hypercars, we've got to look at the 100th running, the 100th anniversary. There's a French team in there, Peugeot, running a very almost bizarre concept of no rear wing or anything. Yeah. Have they got a chance, or are they just sort of there for the pride of being in the race?
Yeah, the Peugeot program, it's almost already a bit of an enigma. when they first launched that car, I had shudders. I was like, oh no. The last time a manufacturer brought a very different concept into the top class of Le Mans was 2015 when it was Nissan, and that was a complete disaster. I hope that an engineering department is running the show here and not a marketing team. I'm not convinced yet that that is the case. The car started the season, well, should have been there last year, was not ready. I do think that was a mistake. I think if I was running that Peugeot program, I would have put that car into Le Mans last year anyway, just to get a bit of experience, because this is the big year. This is what it's all been building up to, because they want to be able to say that they won the centenary race. That in itself is such a huge thing for the French automotive, market. This is a car that has never pounded around Le Mans before. It looked frankly awful at Sebring across the bumps. It had a bit better pace when we had some flatter surfaces when we got to Portimao and Spa, but with Le Mans, it's not a Tilkedrome billiard table flat piece of racetrack. It has bumps, it has big curves, drops, you name it. It's got public roads on it, and that's where I'm a little bit uncertain with the Peugeot as to whether it's going to be able to stand up to the rigors of the racetrack. They've had a lot of electrical issues with that car, and it just conking out for, at first seemingly unknown reasons, and they tend to be electrical. My concern is that car is going to shake itself to bits because it's not had the experience in the rigors of going round Circuit de la Sarthe enough. However, this is the big caveat to all of this. If there is one circuit where this car will work without a rear wing, it is Circuit de la Sarthe. This is a car that's been designed to be as bullet fast in a straight line as possible because it's got no drag on it, and that's where the Mulsanne Straight's going to come into play. And I think that's what the concept was being thought of when they first came up with it. It looks stunning. It was there as a show car last year, and it does take your breath away when you see it in person. But that's my big concern with this team, and I think again they've maybe got a little bit of that inexperience playing into it with some of their lineups. But I based on what I've seen so far this season with the Peugeot, I don't think they've got the outright speed like the Ferrari does, and I don't think they've got the reliability mechanically like the Cadillac and the Toyota to make a big impression on the race this year.
Yeah, it's one of them that is it the French going, we're French, we're going to win Le Mans, and we'll build a car for it, and then we'll forget about everything else because.
I think there could be an element with that, and to give them a little bit of due, I don't think the Peugeot boardroom would have perhaps been expecting as many manufacturers to turn up, for this year when they first signed this project off a few years ago. From the ACO's perspective, there could be a little bit of wrangling there between two French organisations, but what I would remind the listener is Peugeot had committed to rebirths of LMP1 before and let the ACO down. I think when the ACO had the Peugeot coming along, saw that there were some project issues starting to creep in and the timeline of the car slipping back and back and back, you can't blame the ACO for looking at alternative ways of bringing more manufacturers in. No good setting up a race for a French manufacturer to win the thing if the French manufacturer aren't there. They are there now, but they're very much on the back foot.